How do you play to each other's strengths?
You know, it's really in the spirit of collaboration. First, there's a great deal of mutual respect.
Yes, clearly.
The second thing is we really listen to each other's views. And, you know, everyone gets a voice, right? So the whole objective is to pull out of each individual the unique value they have to contribute. And to really try to integrate that into the answer, whatever the question is. But we also play different roles in public. I mean, in private, it's more of, you know, 4 different brain trusts, or in the sense of the executive team, 12 different brain trusts that come at the same issues. But in public, we do play very different roles. And I think those roles are more a reflection of our individual strengths and weaknesses, but together they're very good in a collaborative sense.
Yeah, it sounds like you're clearly an example of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Oh, absolutely. You know, but I think of it as any sports team. You know, maybe football, maybe the best example. That's the style of team where you need skill positions, and you need quarterbacks and running backs and receivers, and you know, the guy is going to blitz the quarterback and the defensive backs. I mean, they're all skill positions, and they're all unique skills. But if you don't have them all together, you're probably not going to win.
For a long time, I was the only non-engineer on the executive staff. Rob Salmon, our head of sales now, but for a long time that was true. One of my sayings, so like this meeting we just set up, or before I give a talk, what I always ask is, what do we want them to feel when they leave? That's how we do these meetings. Well, when I first started doing that, people would look at me like, why would you ask that? What do you want them to feel?
Who cares how they feel, right?
Right, we got to give them information.
Yeah.
I said, no, I don't believe that. So that is adopted across. So Dan started his meeting, his speech with, here's what I want you to think, feel, and do. Internally, he said, so I ask everybody, tell me how they'll feel when you're done, and I know how I'll close it. So I think what I brought to the party was the more intuitive sense of it. You got to have people aspire, and you got to inspire them, and that's a core part of our leadership principle, I think. The other guys brought tremendous technical capabilities, in Dan's case, and now Tom George's tremendous business capabilities, but we all have a pretty good sense of some of the other stuff, but we have clear strengths in areas, and we lean on each other. James Lau is somebody you haven't met, but James is the other founder with Dave, and James doesn't speak that much, but when he speaks, everything stops and everybody listens. He's got incredible intuition about markets, technology, so the team, which has been together a long time, we had an interesting challenge in that it was very hard to join our executive team.
Yes. How do you bring a new person on board? I would think it would be very difficult.
It was, and part of it was our problem because we kind of complete each other's sentences. I always tell people when they're going to present at executive staff, it never goes well for them at the beginning. Almost always, first time doesn't go well. So somebody, I forget who, was smart enough to ask me, I'm going to go for the first time. I hear it always doesn't go well. Could you tell me what you would recommend? Well, here's a good start. And I say, let me tell you why it doesn't go well. How many slides do you have? This is back in slide days, and I think they had 30. I said, well, it's not going to go well. I can tell you that now, because we all have attention deficit. So what you need to do is say, here's the problem, here's what I recommend, here's what I want to do, here's what it costs, and is it in my budget or not? At the end of that, they're either going to go, okay, or they're going to say, I don't buy those two. Then pull out the information on those two. Don't tell them how to build a watch, just tell them what time it is. That's how we operate.
Advice.
So new people coming in are very confused by that, because most companies they've come from, they're used to taking a lot of time with data before someone gets to a point. And that's just not how it works here. So we struggled with this specifically on the marketing side, because people would come in and they kind of where the rubber meets the sky type people. People go, what are you trying to say here? That didn't work so well. So eventually we figured out we have to have a marketing guy who's very technical and can demonstrate that to our company, or they'll never make it. We have that now in Jay Kidd. And when we interview executives, we tell them you have to take stands early. You have to, and Tom George did it, first meeting he was ever in. We want people who have opinions. We want people who will stand up and say, this is what I believe.
Each person brings their different thing to it.
Yeah, but what it sounds like is they bring their different thing, but you also pay attention and listen.
Well, I do think over the years especially, a team that's been together, some of us, there's newer folks, but there's also been people now who have been working together for boy, James was my boss at another company. He first became my boss,
Yeah,
I think,
right.
in '88, so 21 years.
21 years you've known
that
each
we've
other.
been working together. I think it doesn't have to be that amount of time, but one of the things I've learned about James, whenever I disagree with him, almost always there's some smart point that he has that's worth figuring out. I mean, maybe I'm right, maybe he's right, but if he's uncomfortable, I'm probably not 100% right, and I may not be right at all. And so I've learned to be comfortable with the disagreement and not worry about it as a disagreement, but how do I pull out whatever thing it is that he knows that I don't know? Or maybe there's a thing that I know that he doesn't know, but I haven't articulated it yet. And so I think over time, that confidence, like Tom, Tom Mendoza is a good example. He will come up and say stuff that it makes no sense to me whatsoever, and I can't figure out how he got there.
How do you
And-
figure it out?
I just keep talking to him. Just sort of ask, well, what makes you think that? So my engineering rational background, I tend to be looking for what exactly is the problem, what are the details, what are the facts. Tom, typically if Tom thinks there's a problem, it's not because he did an engineering mathematical sense, it's because he's been talking to people. But then you go poke at the place he's pointing at, and it's like, damned if there isn't a problem there.
Exactly.
And that took a while for me to get trust with as well, that even though I
didn't-
couldn't, Tom's way of thinking is not my way of thinking, that I should trust that his conclusion at least might be right.
Well, I think Tom is classic. Tom Mendoza, pretty much classic Mr. Outside. He's a rainmaker. He's a relationship builder, and I think that the thing about Tom that it's easy to underestimate is Tom is very perceptive and very strategic. So Tom isn't all about this outgoing personality. Tom actually has a lot of caring, a lot of empathy, and he's very, very perceptive. And I think, first of all, the whole team is like that. I think Dan is kind of more of is also very, very compelling with customers, but I think Dan has more of an inside focus. I think he's obviously has a much more stronger operational bent, a lot more structural and organizational bent. And I think, James and Dave play different roles within the company. Dave has evolved from being the technological visionary to Dave, I don't know how he would describe himself, but he kind of floats from project to project to project. And Dave has an extraordinary skill in that, a lot of people come from the outside and they wonder, well, what can I possibly contribute to this company? You have Tom and Dave and James, what are all these people doing?
Yes.
And if they're doing jobs, then what opportunity is there for me to do anything? And Dave is a trusted advisor. People ask for his advice all the time. And he'll get involved in our new branding campaign, or he'll talk about something about products or some of the go-to-market stuff. And he's able to engage, add value, be a confidant without intervening in any operational decision. So Dave can float around the company, anybody can talk to him, and you never worry about him either undermining some decision or undermining some plan.
Wow, it's
an
amazing.
extraordinary skill.
Yes.
And I've never seen anybody do it. And it's almost impossible to explain to somebody else what his role is. And I think he's good at it. I think everybody respects his opinion. He's obviously a very bright and broad and very complex guy. And he's engaged. And like I said, he never is in a position where, gee whiz, I hope they don't talk to Dave because Dave might undermine some decision we've made. It never, ever happens. And
That is
that's
truly
really good.
amazing. And what about you?
What about
What
me?
is it? What is your role? What do you bring to the team?
I don't think that I'm quite as polar as some of those other guys. I'm certainly not as external as Tom, but and probably not quite the philosopher that Dave is. So I think I'm probably kind of more in the middle.